Hi guys! So I want to start this hormone series with the hypothalamus pituitary gonad axis. The reason for this is twofold. One, because I think this particular pathway is a great example of how hormones work within the body. And then two, because the hormones produced in this pathway are directly involved in endometriosis. So at the top, I have the hypothalamus. And this is where the GnRH hormone, the naturally occurring GnRH hormone, is released. And it's really important to note that the hormone is released in pulses. And it comes through the neurons, and the pulses indicate to the body, okay, we're going to focus on FSH production or LH production. And then that is the anterior pituitary gland underneath the hypothalamus that it travels to. So the GnRH leaves the hypothalamus in pulses into that anterior pituitary gland. The pituitary gland does have two parts to it, the posterior and the anterior. However, this is only occurring in the anterior side. So each of those little blue circles there indicates a cell of the anterior pituitary gland called gonadotropes. And you see the little black squigglies on each cell? That's to kind of indicate the receptor on each cell. So the GnRH hormone goes within there to each cell and it finds its receptor and binds to it. So there's a lot going on each of these cells, right? It's not just this receptor there, but that's what we're going to focus on. So each hormone in the body has a matching receptor. So the hormone will have a specific shape with specific little binding spots, and it has a very particular receptor that it will bind to. So this prevents, obviously, this is preventing hormones that we don't want creating a certain cascade from attaching and operating. So the GnRH hormone will bind to the receptor on the gonadotrope cells. And inside of that cell is where you get this crazy cascade reaction that actually results in the production of FSH and LH. The FSH and LH will then travel through the blood after leaving the anterior pituitary gland, and they travel to the ovaries. The ovaries have two different cells that we're going to focus on here, the granulosa cells and the theca cells. So luteinizing hormone will act on these theca cells to produce testosterone, and then FSH acts on the granulosa cells to produce estrogen and progesterone. And just like everything else, they have little receptors specific for the FSH or the LH on those cells. So the granulosa cells, if you look to the left, it's kind of cut off. It also secretes something called inhibin. And inhibin, like the name suggests, inhibits the release of FSH from the pituitary gland. And then the production of estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone. When we have enough of that, it's called a negative feedback loop, and it tells the pituitary gland not to synthesize anymore. So that's a big overview of what's happening. And then what I'm going to do in the next one is I'm going to focus in on what's happening on those little squigglies and the blue cells. So when the hormone attaches to its receptor on those cells, and this is where the drugs come into play. So how the agonist and antagonist work on hormone production or ovarian function actually starts at that receptor. And remember, the pulses are extremely important, how the GnRH is released. So in the next video, I'm going to focus in on that receptor.